Hello, welcome to third grade. I'm your teacher, Mr. Ritenour, and it is Friday. So before we begin today's lesson, and it's going to be a quick one today, I just want to give you all an update, all right? So I had a meeting with the principal yesterday, and we went over some things and what school's going to start to look like. So let me give you the main points. So first and foremost, starting on Monday, school will officially be starting again. Now, don't get excited. It doesn't mean school is then we're able to go to Mercer Elementary building, right? It means distance learning, which is what we've been doing the last 2 weeks, all right? So before, if you didn't want to do the day's lesson, no big deal. You don't have to, right? It's not mandatory. But starting Monday, it will be. If you want credit for going to school, then starting Monday, you're going to need to log in every single day to the Google Classroom and watch our day's video. Okay? Now, that is the first half. The second half, which is a lot smaller, is then you're going to go back into Google Classroom and you're going to click the link to the Google form for that day. By completing and submitting that Google form, which will just be a couple questions, you will get attendance and assessed for that day. All right, so basically, if you log in, you watch the video, you fill out that form, then that's your day of school. So you can do those whenever you want. All right, if it's your routine to get up and do it at 8 o'clock in the morning, great. If you can't do it because you're away during the school day, well, that's fine too, as long as you get it done before midnight of that day. So if you need to do it in the afternoon when mom or dad gets home, that's fine as well. Okay, you can do those whenever you want as long as you get them done that day. If you're sick, you're not feeling well, you're going away, make sure you let me know. All right, that's more on your parents, but make sure you let me know. That way I can mark you absent for the day. Next, we are going to be meeting all together on Google Meet once a week. Okay, so every Wednesday at 7 o'clock, you'll have the chance to meet up with your classmates and say hello, just like we did on Wednesday this past week. Okay, so we're not going to do that every day, just once a week. Wednesdays at 7 o'clock. Let's see. I'm pretty sure that's all the major announcements um, that I need to make. So if you're not able to get into Google Classroom yet, have your mom or dad message me so that I can help them, okay? So let's enjoy this last day of non-mandatory instruction. I'm going to give you a quick mini lesson here on the Industrial Revolution and then some trivia questions since it is Friday, all right? So let's begin. Okay, feel free to get a piece of paper to jot down some notes. There will be a super short Google form quiz on today's lesson that you are not required to take today, but you probably will want to because it's a good habit to get into. So hopefully you remember and you're able to soak this all in, but if you would like to take some notes, go for it. All right, so if you remember, we just got done talking about Lincoln's assassination. So President Lincoln was killed by John Wilkes Booth, and it changed everything. All right, it changed the healing process. I think I compared it to having a wound and putting a band-aid over it rather than letting it heal with stitches. So that brings us to the Industrial Revolution, which pretty much happened right after, if not during the Civil War. Okay, so we're looking at like the 1850s all the way to like the 1920s. Okay, that's pretty much the height of the Industrial Revolution, and the Industrial Revolution even kind of lingers on until later into the 20th century as well. But let's just focus on the start of the Industrial Revolution, which happened kind of right at the mid 1800s. So we're talking like 1850s and on. All right. So the Industrial Revolution. Read along with me as we go through this. Throughout the 19th century, so what years would the 19th century be? Yep, the 1800s, right? It's always one number ahead. I always thought that was weird. So the 19th century is the 1800s. Americans began inventing new things. The age of farming was coming to an end, while the era of factories was just beginning. With the invention of the steam engine in the late 1700s in Europe, pause for a sec. Can you think of a country in Europe? Good. England, France, Germany, Spain, France. Sorry, I just said France. Italy. These are all European countries. Okay. Farmers were able to plow their fields and harvest crops with machines rather than manual labor. So manual labor means like your hands. So instead of having to go out and rake or hoe a field for hours and hours and hours, farmers are starting to come up with new inventions. All right. Um, that will make that process go a lot faster. All right, let's keep reading. While the need for farm hands decreased, the need for factory workers increased, which drastically populated blank. Got a blank here. Cities. All right, so the cities are where you have a lot of the factories, right? Big cities. Keep reading. Other inventions like the steamboat and locomotive, that's another name for a good train, allowed for people to travel distances they had never been able to before. So a lot of people back in the early 19th century might never have traveled further than maybe the next town over. So imagine never, ever, ever leaving Mercer your whole life. All right. At best, you make it to like the outlet malls. Now that we have a steamboat and a locomotive, people are able to travel a lot further and a lot faster and a lot safer as well. Okay, back to our story. The invention of the cotton gin and sewing machine increased production of clothing and allowed families to afford more clothes than ever before. Imagine having only 2 outfits your whole life. Now you might have 5 or 6. Woo! Some of us have more like 50 or 60, right? The telegraph was invented, which allowed people to communicate over great distances using blank code. So, does anyone know what kind of code? It's a bunch of dots and dashes. Right, some of you knew it. It's called Morse code. Right? It's what they used to use to communicate. Okay, let's keep reading. There was even a cable installed under the Atlantic Ocean to connect Great Britain and the United States. Now, European news that would take weeks to reach us only took hours. So why would it take weeks for news to reach the United States? Yeah, because the Atlantic Ocean, right? A boat would have to carry a letter all the way from Europe to North America, and that would take weeks. Now that you have the telegraph, you're able to send messages within seconds, right? It's kind of like a telephone, but instead of talking, you type a bunch of like beep 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 beep. So now we're able to communicate essentially like instantaneously, and you'll see that's going to be a game changer for what's to follow after the Industrial Revolution. Okay, let's keep reading. Weapons were being invented that improved accuracy and distance. The first machine gun was invented, which would have a devastating effect on all future wars. Right, that's called the Gatling gun. And you see it at the end of the Civil War. It's basically like this giant machine gun that you twist this lever in the back, and it goes around and around and around. It just shoots like hundreds and hundreds of bullets. And you saw the videos of how close they fought in the Civil War. So every single one of those bullets is going to hit someone. Very devastating. Okay, let's keep reading. The light bulb was created to allow for blank powered light. What do you think goes in the blank? What kind of light? Yeah, electric. So before, you'd have to use what? Yeah, candles. And we're going to keep reading. Candles were no longer necessary, which decreased the amount of fires, right? You don't have open flames in your house all the time. At the turn of the century, toward the end of the Industrial Revolution, the car was created using an blank line. You're probably not going to know this, but it's a name for a type of manufacturing, like making something, where each person makes a specific parts and then they all fit together. It's called an assembly line. And Henry Ford, you might recognize Ford, he was kind of the master of that, and that's why his automobile, his car, became the most popular and most affordable at the time. Right, it's called the Model T. If you ever get the chance to go on vacation, there's a great museum up in Dearborn, Michigan, the Ford Museum. It's really cool. It's got the first Mustang in it. I know Bobby would like that. All right, back to our story here. This allowed the prices to be lower and affordable for the average worker. This entire time period of invention and innovation, that means improvement, changed the world and is known as the blank revolution. Well, look at the title of this slide here, the Industrial Revolution. Okay, so what we have is a time where inventions, machines are all coming out and they're all helping create more and newer and better products. Kind of like right now we've got the technology revolution, all right? You start with um, like a laptop, and then all of a sudden you've got a smartphone, and then you've got virtual reality and smart watches, and you can see how each new invention leads to another even better invention. And that's kind of what's happening right now at the end of the 19th century. So let me show you a picture of what like a factory would look like. So right here, you see how busy, how many machines are on that picture? You've got guys down here that are like lifting things, heavy things. You've got, you might not be able to see it, but there's like kids and stuff working back here on the small parts. And you've got all kinds of machines and gears like over here and whatever that is. And a lot of people are working in these factories. Now, what do you think is going to happen if a lot of people are in one tiny space with a lot of dangerous equipment? Yeah, right? Injury, accidents. People are going to get hurt, and sometimes, in the worst case, people are going to die. And that's what happened during the Industrial Revolution, all right? A lot of people got either sick or died because they were working in very um, poor conditions. All right. And believe it or not, this was before there were any rules saying that kids couldn't work. So a lot of kids would go to work to help support their families, to help put food on the table. And the kids would be doing jobs that would require them to work with all these little machines. And a lot of times kids would lose their fingers working these tough jobs. All right. So we can be thankful that we live in a time where we're a lot safer and cleaner, and kids aren't losing their fingers trying to work to put food on the table, right? Um, let me put this picture back real quick. Sorry, drawing on it. And clear. Oh, what am I doing? Here we go. Oh man, sorry, I'm struggling right now with my touchscreen. So this is a picture of the language, the Morse code, created by Samuel Morse. And if you see here, each one of these is like a dot or a dash. So if you wanted to spell out like your name, you would follow these dots and dashes um, to spell them out. So if I wanted to just spell ABC, it would be, I'm going to use my pen. A would be dot dash, B would be dash dot dot dot, and then C would be dash dot dash dot. Okay, so that's how you're able to send messages. You're able to spell out letters um, using Morse code on the telegraph. Now, the telegraph gets replaced quickly by the telephone. Very good. So let's look at some very popular inventions that happened during this time period. Okay. So any thoughts on which one to click first? I like it. Let's start with purple. So in 1807, Fulton invented the steamboat. Okay. Um, by the way, a lot of these inventions happened in Europe differently than when they happened in America. So I'm focusing on America since this is US history. So in 1807, Fulton invented the steamboat, which is basically what you see in this picture. It's a ship that's able to move not by rowing or by wind, but it's able to move by um, by steam. Okay, how do you get steam? Well, you heat up water, right? You heat up water really hot, and then that steam actually you can use to create energy, which will allow this. You can see it right here. This piece right here, this wheel to turn. Okay, and then whenever that wheel turns, it pushes and propels the boat. So if you can heat up water, you can create steam and use it as an energy source. All right, let's go to, what was that? Goldenrod? Good choice, fish. The telegraph. Now, we talked about it already, so we're not going to spend too much time here, but look at this little telegraph machine that they used. This was how they pushed that down, and they would make the dots and the dashes. Okie dokie. Patina wants this nice color. I don't know what that is. 1793, we've got the invention of the cotton gin. So this is like kind of before the Industrial Revolution. We'd call that pre-Industrial Revolution. And it was invented by Eli Whitney. He's also kind of famous for inventing the concept of interchangeable parts. So like you could make like one part of a gun and it would fit in a different kind of gun. Uh, it basically allowed you to create a lot of the same product rather than having to have a specialist come in. So anyway, that's more advanced for high school, but let's just look at the cotton gin here. You put the cotton in on one side and spin this lever here. And what it would do is it would remove all the seeds from the cotton plant, which is, you don't want the seeds, all right? That wasn't the valuable part. You wanted the flower part, the fluffy part of the cotton. And before the cotton gin came out, it was basically everyone had to do it by hand and pick them out. And that you could tell that would take forever, it'd take a long time. And mainly it was slaves that had to do that job. So the cotton gin helped with that and really allowed the South to flourish their economy without slavery. So that was a good thing. Let's look at The Locomotive by George Stephenson. Kind of looks like a train, sort of ish. You can tell that at first it was definitely not like what we think of as trains today. But that was huge because now people could get from one place to another and they wouldn't have to take like a horse and buggy. So let's go to the bottom row. We've got the telephone that happens later. That's Alexander Graham Bell in 1876. The light bulb by Thomas Edison 3 years later. The airplane, which comes out right at the turn of the 20th century. If you've ever been to the Outer Banks, you've probably seen Kitty Hawk, which is in North Carolina. It's where the Wright brothers invented their airplane. They flew it right on the beach there. And in 1908, you've got not the first car, all right? A lot of people think Ford invented the first car. He didn't. But he kind of created the first affordable car, a car that anyone who was relatively well off could afford, not just the super rich and wealthy. All right, so um, I do have a video for today, but um, we're just running out of time here, so we're not going to watch it. It's kind of what I've already said. It goes through some inventions. Um, no big deal that we don't watch it, but really the main message today is that after the Civil War, there was just this huge period of inventing, lots and lots of inventing, and the shift from farming to factories um, really helped shape America, including all the way up till today, right? So that's a major, major part of the United States. History is the Industrial Revolution. Next time we get together, we will talk about some Wild West stuff, some Native Americans, and some uh, famous people as well. So thank you so much for joining in, and I just hope that you all have a great weekend. I miss you, and we'll see you back here on Monday with our first mandatory first day of school, kind of like first day all over again. So don't forget to head on over to Google Classroom and fill out that Google form for today. Um, that way, you're getting that good practice when you're ready for next week. All right. All right, Mr. R is officially out. Have a great weekend.